when a photographer buys his or her kit, you're looking to buy the right cameras, you're looking to buy the right lenses, buying the right tripods, it's something that's within your budget. You're trying to buy the best that you can, but you're always making sure that you've got the right equipment. Now, when it comes to studio work, those photographers out there that do studio photography, whether it's family portraits, whether it's product photography, whatever it is, and you're working in the studio and you're using studio lights, it's important that you know how to use those lights. I've seen it. I've seen photographers who have worked in studios who don't know anything about lighting. They've just bought some lights and hit and hope, and they'll watch a few YouTube videos and they'll go from there and that type of thing. But specifically, rather than the actual lights themselves as having the right kit, I wanted to talk about light meters and flash meters. Okay, and the importance of having a flash meter for studio lighting and knowing how to actually use it and the difference it actually makes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Well, knowing your kit generally, this what I'm about to say is not about a light meter, but I remember I was trying to use a Nikon camera and I couldn't get this thing to do what I wanted it to do because I'm a Canon user. And I was looking through all the menus. I couldn't get it to it. I hand it over to you and you go, oh, it's here. Even though you're now using a Canon, you knew your Nikon stuff inside out when you were using it. Yeah. And if it was a Canon camera and someone handed it to me, I'd probably be able to do the same.
Yeah.
And that's about knowing your kit and light meters. I mean, light meters are pretty simple things, really.
They are.
I mean, stick it on the flash setting with no cord or cord if you're still syncing, but most people do it with a trigger now. Yeah. You press a button, do the lights, and you read the thing, and there you are. Yeah. I mean, it's not difficult. Yeah. But I mean, I'm worrying about sounding like old man shouts at cloud here, but I do find that when I've interviewed people for studio photography, whether it was in my venture days or, I help out another independent studio as well as my own, and I do help with the interviews and go through the studio with them. And, you think that they don't, I mean, these are people who have not necessarily fresh from uni. They've probably been to uni, maybe it's a couple of years after uni or college or whatever it is. And they don't know how to use things like light meters. And I find that perplexing because I had my own light meter when I was at uni. Do you know what I mean? I knew how to use it. I definitely knew how to use it. And I do worry about what people are being taught. I worry about, the fact that, we do have digital cameras. Things do seem a little easier because, we can see the pictures straight away. We're not reliant on film and all this kind of stuff. And, it's easier to make a mistake and rectify it because you see the image straight away. And maybe that's the reason. But, when I find people coming out of colleges and uni and they don't know how to use a light meter, I'm kind of a little bit perplexed, especially if you want to go into the studio area of the industry. It's a simple thing you need to know about.
It is. And you said it's one of the simplest things to use. And I know that I used, and I got rid of it a long time ago, a Sekonic light meter. And all it had was these little triangular lights, I guess, that lit up. And it had one button and it had the ISO setting. So you set the ISO and then you press the button in the middle, the lights flashed, you read it one way and then you read it the other way and you balance your lights up. It was the simplest thing to use. Honestly, I could teach a 10-year-old how to do it and use it very, very, very quickly. Okay.
In fact, the new ones, or the newer ones, are a lot easier than the old school light meters. I mean, the ones where you have to turn all the dials and stuff. You don't even have to do that these days. You don't even have to do exactly.
That's right. Yeah, things have changed. Things are so easy, but people don't know how. People don't even seem to think that they need a light meter. This is one of the things that is surprising when you've got studio lights. Yes, I agree in the sense that when we were shooting film,
which is just what I was saying, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
The film and digital.
You needed to when you're shooting digital. I mean, if I was doing a shoot and I didn't have a light meter, it'd be fine. I wouldn't panic. I could see what I've got on the back of my camera. Yeah. I could work it out and I'd know what I was doing, but it's because I know my equipment. So I would know that, oh, hang on a minute, that flash power is like, it's 3 points above the one on the right. It's 3 points above. It's firing 3 times higher or something, whatever, and I want to balance it up, or I need to move it back, I need to move it left, or I want to get a little bit more of a highlight. I haven't got my light meter, but I know that by reading 0.1 on my right and by reading 0.7 on my left is going to give me that. And that's from experience, that's knowing it. And that's because I know the light meter, so I know what's happening. So I can work without a light meter. But to use it and to be sort of and familiar with it is not only going to give you the best images, the most flattering images, but it's also going to make your post-processing easier as well. As I always say that, as photographers, we should not be spending, unless you really want to, you need to spend as little time as possible editing than you need to. If you're on a shoot and you're spending a lot of time editing because the job justifies that, that's fair enough. But you don't want to be doing a shoot where you're spending most of your time editing and none of that editing time has been paid for. And the only reason why you're editing is because they've not been shot properly.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, it depends on what in the studio. Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah, we're talking about studio stuff here. Yeah.
I mean, one of the comments that I used to get when I was training people, and I was working for that well-known family photography company, one of the comments I got was like, yeah, but I see you just put it on that setting on the light, so I'll just do that. I don't need to worry about using the light meter because, for the flat fashion lighting that they used to use, it was simple. And, fair enough, it was supposed to be like that, so you could move the light and didn't have to constantly be remetering. But I was like, no. You need to learn how to use a light meter because you're not going to be working here forever. You might know in this studio that at that light at that point is going to be at that setting. But in another studio, if you want to recreate it, how are you going to recreate it? If you don't know how to use a light meter, you're not going to be able to do that. And I was always very much of the opinion, I'm trying to train you as a photographer, not necessarily a photographer for this studio. You need to know how to use a light meter because, like I say, you need to be in another place and you need to be able to go pop, 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 and sort it all out with all the different light readings. You don't know how many light setups you need and all that kind of stuff, and just understanding it. So, yeah, I mean, you said you had a Sekonic. My light meter I bought in, I think, 1998 or 1999. Still going strong.
Yeah, that's right. I've got the Sekonic meter somewhere, and it's still going. I've had that. I've had that for 30 years, I reckon. It's still going. Right. Yeah.
I mean, a bit of an investment at the time, especially when I was 18, 19 at the time. It was about. Well, this is the joke. So you have the Sekonic one, which is about 120 quid.
Right. Yeah.
This one, which was Shepherd Polaris. At the time, I think it was about 80 quid, so it's a bit cheaper and was actually more accurate than the Sekonic at the time. It was
I'm sure,
it was a tenth of an f-stop, rather at the time the Sekonic was an eighth of an f-stop.
Yeah.
And I've used it. It looks like something out of the 80s, I have to say. It's not the most well designed as far as how it looks, but it does the job. It's very, very good. In fact, I had I was helping someone set up the lights, and I was doing it with my meter. And that person did it with his meter, and there was a difference in the lights. And I was worried because my meter is very old. I thought, oh no, maybe it's the end of my meter. And then we actually got someone else to use their meter, and theirs was saying the same as mine. So I'll have to say, I love it. Yeah.
And that's the other thing, though.
Once you bought it, they'll last.
Different meters will probably give you a different reading. So there is a case of saying, well, okay, which one is right? But the thing is, it's going to get you as accurate as you can be in your situation, and then you get to know your lights because I can't remember which camera it was. I think it was a D4S. But I always worked when I had the Nikon D4S. I always had the exposure value of that, the EV reading, on -half to -1. I always felt that every shot that I did, no matter what I did, it overexposed. And so I permanently put the exposure value down, and it always gave me the best results.
I mean, technically you're supposed to do that anyway. Yeah. I mean, when I was using 5.4, I would meter for the blacks.
Yeah.
But I know that meter is going to make that black grey.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
but you
have to stop down a bit.
Yeah, this was generally every shot that I was doing, though. As soon as I bought the camera, I thought, why does it seem to overexpose everything when the exposure value is on 0? And whether that's if I've got it, say, in program mode or something, it was always doing the same. And it wasn't quite right. Once I go to a manual mode, I could set it and it was actually fine. But back then I was using the meter in the camera because
which
it wasn't
aren't as
mirrorless.
accurate. They're not as accurate
right,
as a handheld meter.
That's right. Yeah.
Not.
But using a meter is important. Like we're talking about flash meters here in the studio, but when we talk about light meters, again, when I was shooting weddings on medium format, at weddings or any job outdoors, you'd be taking a light meter reading for almost every shot you'd be doing, and you'd be doing your shots at a wedding, and then you'd hold the light meter, looking at the light. But then you got used to it because you could go and set a group up. By the time you've walked back to what the camera was on the tripod back then, the sun may have gone in. You turn around, you're about to press the button, and the sun comes back out. And for a period when I was learning, you'd go back and do meter readings, and it was very quick to do, but it still took up time. But then after a while, you realize I'm F8, I need to open up to 5/6. I'm F11, I need to get to F16. I need to open up half a stop. I need to close. I need to you get to know and you get to learn. I think too much these days because of digital is hit and hope. You say to people, I think you just need to, maybe you're just a tad over on the exposure, and they'll like look at you and think, what on earth is, what?
Oh, we can fix it in Photoshop.
I can fix it in Photoshop.
You can fix it in Photoshop, can't you?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, is there something wrong with the camera? No, you've just overexposed the tad, right? You should know that, and mirrorless has made it even easier. It's almost foolproof now because you see what you're shooting in the viewfinder. So there's never any excuse to get the exposure wrong, unless you're working in the confines of, you're under pressure on a job and you get one or two wrong just because you were working so quickly. It's going to happen. Yeah. But when you've got time and you're slowing down and you're thinking about it, you should never make an and that's I'm talking about normal light meter readings. But just to finish off on that, we're talking about flash. I know a lot of photographers now aren't really even using studio flash. They're using LED lights now. Lighting has changed dramatically now over the years.
I mean, LEDs are good. We use them when we're doing we're doing weddings and stuff, don't we? I think the idea of using a flash studio flash on a wedding it's just not feasible, really, because things move a lot quicker now, and it's not something you can do. However, I wouldn't replace my studio lights in a studio with LEDs.
No, because when we do product photography, we'd never use LEDs for those. No. I have done, but flash still gives me that pop, that gives me that depth. It gives me it just gives me that spark.
Also, you can control the different types of lighting, whether you want hard light, soft light, barn doors, and all those kind of things. Which I guess some LEDs you can do that now, but it's not really the same.
But learn how to use them. Get yourself a light meter as well. Don't go out and buy studio lights, not buy a light meter. And gradually you'll get to learn what those lights do and what readings that you should be getting and everything. And you'll question it. If you think you need to, we shoot a product, I need to shoot that product at f/22. I need to get it I need to get it sharp, front to back. So I've got to have those studio lights up high. I've got to have them, the power's got to be on, that product has got to be pin sharp all the way. And I've come in close as well because I need to fill up the frame. So I know my flash needs to be high. And if I've got it on power 1 and it's got, say, power 10 as the highest, I know I need to be somewhere near power 10.
You only got to power 10, do you?
Right? That's right.
Mine goes up to
11. That's right. So anyway, let's stop that one there. But flash meters.
Well, I would say though, if you're looking at a flash meter, I mean, you can't go wrong with a Sekonic. I think Sekonic's a great light meter. I'm not too sure if you can buy mine anymore because it's really old, but just have a good look around. The Sekonic, I mean, is the general one to use, I think. So that'd be all good.